I must say the music really touched me, and also the film. It reminded me of a very good friend in South Africa of mine who is a member of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And she one day said, and I was sitting on my veranda, Petra, the most important thing that I learned in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is that people who commit atrocities have denied themselves their own humanity. That's why they do what they do. And so we do a lot of atrocities to each other and to the planet. So humanity and coming back to our shared humanity is at the core, and it's not an unimportant aspect. So can we have the PowerPoint? Great. So this is about stewarding sustainability transformation. I would like to quickly go back. I'm following on to Johan Rockström. You remember he ended with, we need to steward the transformation. I'm also referring to the last session on mindset shift, because there is something we need to integrate between self-mindset, between process, how do we do things, and between systems. And I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on the process, on the how do we actually do this. So, just like to go a little bit back, I would like to honor Maya Göpel with her book Great Mind Shift, because she said transformation means radical, incremental change, and it's not a contradiction. So we look at the situation in the world, and we know how it looks like, and this is collective action, by the way. But this is not the kind of collective action that we're looking for, and I just want to be a bit careful. I'm using the term a lot, but it needs to be contextualized. So the collective action that we want is a little bit more like this. We want people to communicate, collaborate, and at the core of SDG transformation is people need to own their own future. There are no losers in the world. People need to own the future and need to shape their future collectively. So that's at the core of my work, and I would like to kind of just quote Grace Lee Boggs. Those of you who don't know Grace Lee Boggs, she is a relatively famous American revolutionary. There are some. She turned 100 in 2015 and passed away a couple of days afterwards. She wrote fantastic books, and this quote is from her. The new paradigm we must establish is about creating systems that bring out the best in each other. And that's what we need to go about. So the SDGs are actually a good step forward. The people who invented the visual, I think, were genius, because what they did, they created something that is alive and that people can identify with. And they can run with this. There is no IP on the visual. People can kind of get the tiles and put them together in a different way. There is a bit of a style guide, but otherwise people can run with it. And I have this municipality that we are working with in the Netherlands, the smallest municipality in the Netherlands. And they have created a Global Goal Academy, and they have said, we are the first municipality in the Netherlands, maybe in the world, I don't know. And for us, the SDGs are the core of what we do. We have a network, we shift into a network organizations, we have SDG ambassadors, we work with schools and with other municipalities, we work with enterprises, etc., and they're fired up, and you know what? People have fun. So SDG implementation can be more than a technical implementation challenge, it can be fun. It is, and that's at the core. The issue is human agency, and do we understand a little bit more about human agency? First question is, what can we learn from successful transformation processes? I grew up in Berlin, and on our daily ride to my school, I was passing the death strip. And in the village that I lived in Berlin, in West Berlin, I could hear the shootings from the border. And for me, this was a system I grew up with until I was close to 30, that could not be changed. And that was that way I was told when I was a child, the system can't be changed. It did. It did. It did. But not just by itself. Quite interesting. In a mix between stewarding, there were a lot of people stewarding this. And it looked like an accident. It wasn't. And people have never gone any thank you for that. A lot of people were stewarding that. And a lot of people are still stewarding this today, 30 years after this happened. So it needs collective stewardship and it needs self-organization. And I would like to just go a little bit to there are many examples that I'm working with, like be it kind of cross-border trade, Afghanistan, Pakistan, be it integration of Eastern Balkan countries into the European Union, be it like water management in Tunisia or climate action plans in Georgia. So it's everywhere we work, it is about collective stewardship and it's about collective action and getting people to understand the future. I would like to zoom in a little bit into Tunisia. Imagine Tunisia countryside, a drought, a huge drought problem, a government that has changed, where the old structures are still in place, the new structures haven't really materialized, and there are attacks by the IS. And a lot of young people are recruited for the IS, Kairouan in southern Tunisia. And now this collective stewardship around water as an SDG took place as a 2-year process where it was about getting people into conversation that were fighting with each other like no tomorrow. The farmers were stealing water. The government people thought the farmers were criminals. Indeed, farmers stole water from the pipelines. No communication, nothing. No communication between the government departments. Everything was stuck. And it was possible in a 2-year process, and this becomes now quite technical, to steward that people took up shaping their future collectively. Nobody else could be doing it for them. They did it themselves. It was about getting the government departments into a conversation first. They couldn't talk with the farmers. Getting the farmers into conversation with each other, the different kind of associations, etc. It was about getting NGOs involved, and it was about stewarding a top-down and bottom-up process. And that is one of the most important lessons on transformative processes. So what can we learn? Transformative change works when it attends to systems aliveness. Suddenly people had the feeling they can shape their future. They were desperate in Kairouan, but they had the feeling they can shape their future. And suddenly the government officials thought, maybe we should talk with the farmers. And interesting enough, it was the farmers who said, can we work with the government together on a water charter? That's what they did. Two years later, 800 people in the room, and there were tears because they said, for the first time, this happened, that we can create a future together that's different. But it was tangible. There were working groups, there were policies on irrigation, there were policies on drinking water, etc. So there were lots of tangible issues. But it was about getting the human agency together. So we worked with a compass that some of you might be familiar with or not. But the interesting thing about this compass is that it's a guide. It's an action tool that people can understand. It looks complex, but it's easy to work with. And it has humanity is one of the most important criteria. So whatever process you set up, there are questions on relationship building. There are questions on empathy. There are questions on mindfulness. And people can work with it. It works. So it is really about shaping the future together. It's about looking who needs to be engaged in the process. What are the existing innovations actually that we can build on, that we don't ignore? What is it that touches people's hearts? What creates meaning? Because that's what gets people going. And it is about looking at differences in expertise and getting people into a conversation that usually don't talk with each other. And it was about relating to a bigger system and say, who are we doing this for? What's the bigger system? So, and that creates an alive system, a more resilient system, and a system where a self-stewardship of the future can take place. So the next lesson is transformations need these orchestrated, stewarded processes between different actors. And this is just kind of a quick shot, you can't read it, but it gets as complicated as it gets. This is about sustainable fishery. And have multiple actors, international actors, local actors, municipalities, NGOs, government, etc., fisheries associations, and like we may have difficulties in communicating, collaborating in the Club of Rome, they also have difficulties, but they need to get things going. And this is just with a bit of support of creating processes that really work. So it is about multi-stakeholder, it's about multi-level, and these have to be coming together. So these different initiatives have to work together. Single initiatives, single projects are not going to work. So if we look at the larger systems, because the issue is that the project approach that we take is not enough. We need to go into larger systems change, and that's where we actually need to ask different questions, and we need to look at what is the bigger system and how can this integrate into transformation systems. So we need to move from a project approach to a multi-stakeholder partnership approach, but we are at the cusp of moving into identifying with transformation systems. So thank you for that, and this is all kind of written up in the next report to the Club of Rome. Thank you.